let's step back a little bit and consider how a knit stitch is made. How a stitch is made, how a knit stitch is made, how a purl stitch is made. When you Google how to graft knitting, you're going to see some variation of the Kitchener stitch, and you're going to see, you know, knit, purl, purl, knit, and you have this whole pattern. And I've always found Kitchener stitch hard. Something about the orientation of the stitches on the needles, the whole knitwise and purlwise seems very dependent on if you have the stitches oriented on your needles correctly. And something about holding the two pieces of the fabric together instead of flat was just very challenging for me. And so I always did it, but when I've been coming up with these other patterns, I wanted to do something that wasn't the default. And so I had to find another way to do it, and it's not necessarily common or easy to find, and so I wanted to share what I learned with you. So before we get to our washcloth, let's consider the knit stitch. Here we have each of these loops representing one of the loops that would be held on your needle. And I have my yarn on a tapestry needle, and this piece of paper represents the surface of the fabric, the knitted fabric. Okay, so to make a knit stitch, how do you do it? You go from underneath, up, then you go down, and then you go up. Man, this would have been easier if I pre-punched those holes, huh? And then you go back down. Okay, and so obviously this is a bit rudimentary, but this is how a knit stitch is made, and it has this characteristic V shape, and on the back obviously you would have your row of purl bumps. So again, a knit stitch, you go up, down, up, down. Well, that makes sense to me. Okay, now let's consider the purl stitch. For the purl stitch, you're going to want to start going down. I pre-punched my holes this time. A little bit easier. All right, down, up, down, and up. And we'll do it again since purl is a little bit harder to see. Down, up, down, up. So here, again, remember that the paper represents the surface of your fabric, and your purl stitches are going to be the bars. So you want those V's. Oh, hey, look, it looks like a knit stitch. So again, in the purl, you want to have your V's on the back of your fabric or your paper, and you want the bars in the front, and that makes the characteristic pattern. And finally, I'm going to show you garter, which is a little bit harder to represent as a piece of paper. But garter obviously combines the elements of both knit and purl stitches. Okay, so again, garter is hard to represent in paper, but I'm gonna try. Garter is composed of both, sort of, it's a hybrid, right? You know, you're knitting on both sides when you make a garter stitch. So to make a garter stitch, you would go, you know, up, and then you again are going to go under this stitch, up, and then down, and then you are going to go down. Do you see how that looks? So this is how you are going to get garter stitch, right? So this is garter stitch, and this is obviously, this is I-cord edging, so this is a knit stitch. So again, let's do another one. So again, your yarn, if you're gonna, on our pretend page, it's gonna be below. We're gonna go up into this stitch, then we're going to go underneath this loop, out over here, and down, and then you're gonna go down again into this loop. And so the thing to remember when you are making any, well, any, at least with the knit, purl, and garter stitches, is that they are composed of 3 steps. 3 stitches, 4 steps. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, where you are going to be entering and exiting one of the same stitches twice. So, you know, if this was a knit, we would be going from underneath, up, down, up, and back to down again into number 4. I hope this clarifies it. I feel like I've watched so many YouTube videos, and when this method finally clicked for me, it was very much a brainstorming moment. And so I hope it is for you too. So okay, so let's do this one more time. Let's make a knit stitch. I've numbered them this time, and I've got my tapestry needle, and here we are, we're gonna make a knit stitch. You go from underneath the surface of your fabric, up. Step 2, you're gonna go down below the surface of your fabric. And again, remember, knit, purl, purl, knit. You know, this is how you do that without the little catchy rhyme. Here is up through step 3 and down through step 4. You've made a knit stitch. 4 steps, 3 stitches that you're working out of. And now let's do the purl one more time. Again, I've numbered them this time. Hey, hey, hey. For a purl stitch, we want our bars to be on top and our V's to be beneath the surface of the fabric. So we are going to be coming from the top of the fabric. Let's do that. Top of the fabric down. Step 2, we're going to go up from the bottom. Step 3, you're going to go back down into the next stitch. And step 4, you're going to be coming back up through the first stitch that you went into. And so you've got, you know, if I had my other set of stitches here, you can see that you would have your bars from the connecting stitches. So that's how we do knit, purl in, that's how we make our stitches, right? All right, so now that we have that down, let's graft our ends.